okay? Thank you.
Hello, hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Andrea Klein-Thomas. I'm just gonna give it another minute or two to just let people get into the room, but please get cozy. I hope you have something to write with. I really appreciate you spending this hour with me. We're going to pack a whole lot in. So let me just give it one more minute. I see more people are coming into the room, and then we will go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to give it one more minute. For this, I'm going to repeat this in a little bit, but if you have a question, this is a comfortable space. There is nothing off limits. There is no question that is a dumb question. I'm here to be a resource and be so helpful. I'm very excited about this. Please use the Q&A box to ask questions. So if you have questions, use the Q&A box to ask questions. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's again great to see so many of you. My name is Andrea Klein-Thomas. Thank you for not just spending time with me, but investing in yourself. Because it's an hour, we're going to pack a lot in. I'm just going to break down really quickly how we're going to spend our time together. I'm going to give a brief introduction of myself and then go into the 7 steps for unlocking new opportunities. A lot of times when we talk about transitions, we talk about it anecdotally. This is what I did. This is what somebody else did. But I wanted to provide a framework because it is an overwhelming thought. Things, the industry is changing so rapidly, and I wanted to give folks a framework, something that you could use, that you could help gather your thoughts, gather all the information, and see yourself clearly so you can prepare for what I like to call your next or your rewrite. And then I'm going to open it up for questions at the end. Again, if you're just joining us, use the Q&A box. For questions, you can go ahead and put the questions in there. I'll scroll from the top to the bottom. My goal here is not to just inspire you. That is not my goal. My goal is for you all to act. There's a lot of urgency I hope you leave this conversation with, but more than urgency, a commitment to yourself to do at least one thing, to vote for yourself every single week, because while there's a lot out of our control, there's still so much within our control. And I believe, and I am an example, that you can change, transform, even just level up your life. That your next best thing is absolutely within reach. I have notes here. If you see me look over to the side, I'm just making sure that I am covering everything. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so welcome to Ready, Set, Next, 7 Steps to Unlocking New Possibilities. I call this living the life that you design instead of the one you think you have to settle for. So a little bit about me. Who am I? Why am I in front of you today? My name is Andrea Klein-Thomas again. I spent more than 15 years as an on-air TV reporter, started in Macon, Georgia, then Charlotte, Nashville, Philly, and then New York City. Nashville was my absolute favorite stop. It is also where I started my rewrite in a city that I loved, working with people that I loved, doing exactly what I loved. I made the best friends there, but that's also where I started my rewrite. And I highlight that because you don't have to be in a precarious situation to start thinking about your next. I didn't leave traditional news just because I did not like it, that this wasn't my dream, right? Or that I couldn't hang. I like to say that out loud because there's always undercurrents about like, oh, well, they left and then they just couldn't take it. No, I could. But I just knew that, wow, I looked around, and this was so many years ago that I was in Nashville. I looked around and I saw things changing, and I said, what if I would be in a position where a station would want me to do something or want my role to be something, and I just didn't want to do it anymore? What would I do? What else? What else in this world could I do? Because we all have tunnel vision, right? And this is why we're so good at what we do, is because we focused on it and we made our dreams come true. And so I started lifting my head up and looking around at what was out there. And so in July of 2022, I left traditional news and started my own company called Mountain Court Media. And these are just some pictures from the projects that I've worked on. And so Mountain Court Media is a strategic storytelling agency where I help individuals and organizations create authentic narratives, build trust with audiences, and improve their business, like bottom line, essentially. So what does that mean? I'll just give you a glimpse of the last month for me. This week, I had media training. I media train tech executives. Last week, I was in LA because I produced a summit with the Atlantic on the GLP-1 revolution. The week before, I was in Boston for the Atlantic producing a summit on AI in healthcare. The week before, I was in DC with Semaphore. They have the Semaphore World Economy Conference, and I was working with CEO teams handling logistics for that. So it shows up in so many different ways. It has been a very, very busy season for me. And the whole year, I've been working towards all of those projects that all kind of stacked up week after week. But that's just a glimpse of what I do. But I also have this picture of my family on the top left-hand side. And we need to keep that in there because I decided that I didn't want to just live a life where it was work and everything else. I wanted to live a 360-degree life, and how I wanted to show up for my family was a catalyst to the decisions that I make and the decision that I made to leave news, in terms of the life that I wanted to live could no longer be contained in the system of news. But I still wanted to tell stories, and I just wanted to do it differently. And I knew that the world was big enough and it had room for me to do it in a way that didn't make me choose one or the other. Okay, but how did I get from one step to the other? How did I get from being on air to now creating my own business? That took a lot of mistakes, right? So I made the mistakes so you don't have to. But that happened also because I was strategic while I was in my role. I was doing things quietly. I was doing things that I didn't see other people doing. I'm always looking for that white space. I was learning. And when I tell you that it has paid off, like literally paid off big time that is so true in my life. And it has allowed me to have a transition that has been not filled with grief, that has been really joyful and has stretched me and taught me so much. I said that I started my rewrite in Nashville. If you remember my journey, I also went to Philly and New York after. So it was 7 years. You don't need to wait 7 years. So again, I made the mistakes so you don't have to. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, so before we go ahead and get started, I want to make sure that we have kind of the groundwork laid as to how are we going to approach this framework? What's the prerequisite to operationalizing this framework? I always say live the life that you design instead of choosing the life you think you have to settle for. I believe that wholeheartedly. Just because you don't know how it will happen doesn't mean it cannot happen. That all we're doing right now is we have to figure out what is the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And I try to provide resources to help be that bridge in that gap. But that bridge can be crossed, right? You can get from point A to point B, even if you don't know how. That's just your next assignment is figuring that part out. But it absolutely can happen no matter who's in the White House or who's in that corner office. If you want to stay in traditional journalism, you should. A lot of people talk about the rewriters like, oh, it's a thing to get out of news. No, we need great journalists now more than ever before. I just think that you should not put your whole life in someone else's hands. So if you want to stay in traditional journalism, you have to be more savvy than you ever were before. What got you here is not going to get you there. The economy is too different. Things have changed entirely too much. This is about creating an ecosystem to become a magnet for new opportunities. It is not just about getting the next job. It is about creating a whole ecosystem that supports you and that you support. It's a give and take here that can show up for you. And you are not alone. We are the dreamers. We are the ones who made this dream a reality. And I get to hold space for people who are bleeding in plain sight. This is a really emotional process. Looking and experiencing journalism in this way right now is very, very difficult. And I recognize that. And sometimes people have told me, well, I feel embarrassed I got laid off. You are not alone. This is not a knock on you. It is where we are in our economy right now. It really is trash. It's not a lack of effort on your part. What I'm here to help you do is one, stand beside you and also say, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and be strategic and really acknowledge kind of what's happening in our economy right now so you can still be on the leading edge, so you can continue to operate within your agency. But there's nothing, that's why I said earlier, there's no question that's off limits. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question in this forum, then please just email me and I will answer your questions, but you are absolutely not alone on your journey. All right, just doing a time check. We are good. So I start here. It seems like an easy question, but it's a question that took me a very, very long time to answer because in journalism, nobody asks us what we want. We're told how we need to be in spaces. And I'm saying, what do you want? What do you want for real? Write that down. Just take a moment right now, write it down. Don't put filters. This is not asking, what do you think you can get? That's a very different question. My question is, what do you want right now? You don't put qualifiers on it. It's not saying you can get it tomorrow, but we need to be really clear about what we're optimizing for. And I'm the type of person where you can tell me, whatever it is, I'm never going to say, well, that doesn't make any sense. No, we'll make it make sense. It's about, okay, now let's work backwards to get there. So we're going to talk about the 7 steps to unlocking new possibilities here. And this is built from insights from more than 75 interviews. I have a podcast called The Next Best Thing, where I interview people from across industries about what a lot of people call the messy middle. It's about when you're taking a leap, taking a risk, and you don't know if the calculations you're going to make are going to pay off. That's what we talk about. And I also talk to experts about how to interview, how to network, how to negotiate, things of that nature. And it didn't matter what industry somebody was in, there were so many commonalities about things that they did to get from where they are to where they want to be. So that insight is in this, in this framework. All right, sorry, I've just got a message. Okay, back by data and trends about industry changes, hiring patterns, workforce trends. So this is backed by data. The rewrite, as I said before, is personal. It's also built from my own lived experience. Everything that I tell other people that I really think that you should consider and do, I have tested out first. I have been the guinea pig first. And then I also work with people who have done this and have found success. And it's grounded in the mindset that is curious, courageous, and open. Curious, courageous, and open. This whole thing can make you feel very cynical, but you have to have optimism to make things happen. And so we are trained to be cynics, but when it comes to your own life, you have to really, truly believe that anything is possible. Being a journalist is a very difficult job. If you were able to, or career or lifestyle, really, if you were able to do this, then yes, you can do anything else that you want to do. Okay, the framework, I'm just going to go through each. Empower is an acronym. I'm going to go through each one, and then we're going to dive in. It's envision, money, personal brand, organize, widen, evolve, and results. For those who are taking notes, envision, money, personal brand, organize, widen, evolve, and results. All right. Envision. So this is really about, I thought a lot of times we think about this negatively. I want you to start from a positive space. What do you love? What do you love about journalism? Why are you still doing it today? What got you up in the morning to do it? Write it down. All of the things that I'm saying right now are not things they're not rhetorical questions. I need you to write things down because I need you to be able to see patterns and create a strategic plan around it. So what do you love to do? What environments did you thrive in? On your best day, what were you doing and who were you with? And, journalists are kind of jacks of all trades, right? We can do a lot of things very well, but what do you want to be known for? Journalists are we're trained to be kind of generalists in some sense, but what is your niche? What is the area that you love? And it doesn't even have to be connected to journalism, right? It could be fashion, it could be travel, it could be things that you're not even doing day to day, but what do you love? When people compliment you, what do they say about you? So that's the first part, is really assessing what worked and then assessing what didn't work. What didn't you like? Where's the rub? Where's the friction? Why do you have this kind of feeling on the inside? What is that, right? Being able to identify that. A lot of people come to me and they're like, okay, I just need somebody to redo my resume. And I'm like, for what? And they come up with some title, right? And I'm like, well, what does that person do? And they don't really know. Envisioning and evaluating is recalibrating your GPS. There are lots of roads out there. You got to figure out which road is yours, and you need clarity to do that. So you want to evaluate your career. What have you done? What works? But this is not just about your career. It's also about your life. How do you want to live? That's why I say, what do you want what is your ideal day? What time do you wake up? What do you do? What do you do after that? With granular detail. I did that. And the day that I created I just was like, oh, this is frivolous. I closed the book, and years later, it wasn't until like last year I recognized, oh my gosh, I'm living that day. That was an ideal day for me, which was waking up, haven't done the workout part. Um, it was having meetings, working on multiple projects a day, working with different teams. At that point, I wasn't even thinking about entrepreneurship. And so it just is like I couldn't get it on that day, and I did not know how it could happen on that day, but slowly I ended up making that day my reality. So think about it in a 360-degree life. If you're not clear, we are creatures of habit. You will create, if there's something that you're leaving that you don't particularly like, there's a high chance that you're going to create it in someplace else. If you don't address and become very clear on your values and what you want for your future. Okay, so without clarity, there is no direction. Next is money. Okay, this is my favorite part because we don't talk about it a lot. We talk about manifesting, going after your goals. We're going to make it happen. Okay, well, we need to fund our dreams. And we're grown. I live in New York City right now. It's very, very expensive. And so you have to do the calculations. How much does it cost to live your life right now every single month? What is that number? Then add $500 to it because we're kind of off, right? Like chances are we're going to be a little off. And then you also want to account for when life happens. And then how much money cash, available cash, I'm not talking about your 401k, available cash on hand do you have in your savings? How long could you go if today you lost your job? How long could you go? It's taking more than 6 months for folks to get a new job just because of the way the economy is set up right now. It's not uncommon to take more than 6 months, and most of us don't have more than 6 months in savings. It is not, it's not something to be ashamed of. What it is just, again, clarity is just having clarity. So how much money you have, what your runway is, determines what your priorities are. So if you don't have very much savings, then you need to think about what I see happen for people is that they go and let's say they lost their jobs and they're giving themselves pep talks and they're putting themselves out there and they're applying. And the jobs that they're like, I don't want to do that in month one, start becoming a lot more attractive in month three as the savings account dwindles, the severance starts getting used up, right? And then you just you're thrust into scarcity mode. But the idea is that you don't have to have a corporate backing to make money. What you need are skills that people will pay for and getting in the rooms with the people who will buy what you have to offer, right? That's monetizing your expertise. So if you don't have enough savings while you're applying for jobs, you also need to be monetizing your expertise and getting money in the door. And what I'm not talking about $100 here or there, I'm talking about you can make thousands of dollars. I don't have a corporate backing. I'm doing fine. I make all my bills. I'm doing just fine, right? And so it's about monetizing your expertise. So what it is that how much money you have determines what your next steps should be. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. All right, personal brand. Okay, for storytellers, I don't know why it's so hard for us to talk about the work that we're doing. It's easier for us to talk about other people, but the hardest story to tell is your own. But because with like so many careers, journalism is an identity, people don't really understand what that means anymore. Like, what are they going to call, like, if they say your name, if they Google your name, what's coming up? And is that what you want to be known for? Because people can't help you if they don't know who you are, if they don't know what you can do, if they don't know what skills you bring to the table. I liken it to being in the military. We say, thank you for your service, right? People clap. Oh, we have military members on board the airline today. We clap. What do they do? What does a staff sergeant do? I have no idea. It's the same thing with journalists. We only think of them in like we only think of the military in one context during war. They got a gun, they're on a battlefield. It's like a movie, right? Like, but we don't really know what they do day to day. It's the same thing for a journalist. Nobody knows what a journalist actually does. And so we have to be very, very clear and invest in our personal brand and think about if somebody were to look me up, what story would that say about me? And this is where I'm a big proponent of using LinkedIn. And do you have a LinkedIn page? Does it have a picture? Is your LinkedIn page optimized? When it comes to your experience, do you say what you're doing in terms that people understand? If the only way for you to get a new opportunity is for you to find it yourself, it's kind of hustling backwards. What you want is for everything to be optimized so people can find you. This is about you being very clear about who you are and sharing it, and then allowing your people to find you. Why is this important? We've seen the headlines, you know, is social media is a part of our world. And it's a very important part of our world right now as creators are taking over traditional media. Media companies are hiring creators. So journalists are the OG creators. Leverage that as much as possible and be known for something very specific. Okay, we're going to keep going. Organize. This is transforming insights into action, creating a strategic plan. Here's the thing, is that this is not about today, I feel motivated to do this, and then in 3 weeks, I don't do anything. This doesn't happen by chance. Effort compounds. When I was working to figure out like what was out there, every week I would go to an event. And then while I was at the event, I created these rules for myself. I would have to meet 3 or 4 people and then connect with those 3 or 4 people in person. And I just did this over and over and over again. And then I would support people. So you need to create a strategy of every single week voting for yourself. Go outside. Everything, I know we talked about social media, but everything can't be digital, right? So who are you meeting? How many conversations are you having with people? That way you don't have to rely on your mood to make a move, right? And so you have to work that plan until that plan begins to work for you. Effort compounds. Just continuously think about when you don't feel like it. Effort compounds. And you just never know. The day you plant the seed is not the day you harvest. So organizing, having a plan, you're not going to see the results at the front end, but over time, things will start coming to you. The goal here is to become a magnet for new opportunities, not to chase it. All right, so widen. This is widening your network. And so the best opportunities never make it on a job board. So every dollar that I have made from a friend, directly or indirectly from a friend. And so you don't ever know where your blessings are going to come from. This is NABJ, Black folks, this is home base. But you're going to have to step outside of home base sometimes. And that's where the opportunities are going to come from. I had a boss a manager we had a tough relationship at the beginning, right? But by the time I left, we were very close. We even have dinner now, like brunch or dinner now. And when I left, he threw an opportunity my way. A woman who I had met just a few times, who just really loved my work ethic. She gave me my first big contract a few months after I left. And I didn't even pitch her. She was like, I think you would be good at this, that, and the other. You never know where your blessings are going to come from. And this is where optimism comes in, right? Because I go out in the world expecting. I go out with expectation of, is it you? Is it you? Is it you? But also here, I want to put a caveat here in terms of your network. You also have to, I've seen people say this online quite a bit. If you want a village, you have to be a villager. So you also have to serve. You have to serve first. How can you use your expertise? You have the coolest job. People are still enamored with what you do, right? So how do you use your expertise to help them out? And I'm always a helper. I always have enough to help somebody else out. And because of that help, people, when I needed it the most, people came out and found ways to help me. So understanding that opportunity can come from anywhere. Evolve, and we're almost done here to open it up for questions. Allow your plan A to look different. Again, bravo. We are the dreamers. We made our dreams come true. We made our dreams come true. So few people in the world can say that. But with that, once you make your dream come true, guess what? You have a new privilege. And that privilege is to dream a new dream. And when you created that first dream, the world was so different. Now there's room for that dream to exist differently. A lot of people ask me if I miss news. The answer is a quick no. And it's not with bravado, it's with humility. And the reason why is not because I'm like, oh, everything is just better now. No, it's because I knew what I loved so much about news and I never let that go. Everything that I love doing in news, I still do right now. I just do it a little bit differently. I do it like in a more modern way, right? Like on different platforms, but I still do it. So there's actually nothing to miss because I didn't leave anything behind. And if there's anything that I want you to take from this is that it's not starting over. You don't have to leave your years of experience behind. You can just allow it to show up differently on different platforms while still making a tremendous impact. And sometimes the heartache and frustration you feel is because you're just too rigid. You're telling yourself it can only exist in this block, this little box. And I thought I was so exposed. I was like, oh, I used to always tell people I've interviewed people who live on dirt roads and people who live in penthouses. Like all the diversity of experiences I've had until I left and got into different rooms and was like, there's so much I had no idea about. I was just not exposed. So again, even if you don't know what it is, allow for the possibility that something exists that you just have not had proximity to just yet, but it's just the very right thing for you. Okay, and results. Okay, this part of it, is that you have to focus your energy on the things that work. Sometimes a friend of mine calls it making false progress. That is just checking the boxes. I applied to 5 jobs. I sat behind my computer and I applied to, or let's say I applied to 10 jobs this month. And that is the progress. And oh, I did the work and applied to those jobs. And that's it. And then you don't hear anything back. And you don't hear anything back. And you keep saying, I'm doing the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. I'm not getting the same results. You're not trying new things. You're not going outside. You're not joining new organizations. You're not networking. You're not tapping into the people you know. You're not posting on LinkedIn. I'm applying to jobs and I'm not getting the results that I need. At some point, after you've done consistent action, you have to pause and lean in to say, what is working? What is not working? If you are not getting the result, you got to switch things up. That doesn't mean you have to scrap everything, but you might need to add something. You might need to subtract something, but you have to do an assessment because it's not a flex to say, hey, I just did this one thing and I'm just going to do it over and over again. I'm just going to will myself until it happens. No, maybe you just have a strategy that's actually not getting you the result that you want, right? And so again, just going through this one more time and just scrolling here through my notes to make sure I got everything. Envision, money, personal brand, organize, it's creating a plan, widen, evolve, and results. Here's the rub. You have to pull all of these levers all at the same time. Some people are like, okay, I can be open and I'm just going to apply and be open. Well, you're leaving your personal brand for somebody else to create your own story. You're not tapping into the network that you already have. You're leaving a lot of things to chance. This is all like climbing a mountain. You get to choose the incline though. So if you only want to pull the comfortable levers and leave the other ones, then you're just choosing the steepest incline. But if you pull all of them consistently over time, things will happen. I always like to say the worst thing that can happen is that, well, I'm not even going to say the worst thing can happen. If you don't, like, if you're like, oh, I'm going to stay in this job for 30 more years, right? No one's staying in a job for 30 years, but let's say you're going to stay in a job for 30 years. Doing this still, it'll make you have better sources. It'll mean that when it's time to renegotiate your contract, you have actually other options to consider along with the renegotiation. So you probably will get more money because you're choosing to stay. You're not staying because you have no other options. You'll know how to make money. You probably can make money other ways. Now, organizations are allowing folks to make money in multiple ways, especially since people are having to take pay cuts. There's no downside. There's no downside to pulling all of these levers at the same time. All it does is give you options, and options are the most powerful thing you can have. Okay, here are some hard truths for journalists. Just because people consume your product doesn't mean they know how it's made. No one knows what you do. No one knows what you do. So you can't assume that they do. Journalism runs on instinct, business runs on data. You need both. Journalists say, this is a story we think people will want, and we're just going to put it out there, and whoever gets it, gets it. In business, they say, before we even tell that story, we need to understand what the impact is going to be in hard, fast numbers, how much money we're going to spend on it, who we're specifically targeting. The instincts of journalists of knowing, having your finger on the pulse of like what's coming, where you see things, you see patterns, you know what's important, you know how to speak to different audiences. That's important, but you have to have a business mind about it, especially those who are going into independent journalism. You are now a business, and it's not a charity. I know it's a public service, but it's still a business. And so you have to have both the emotional of it, but the concrete data behind it. Your resume does not speak for itself. It is just one marketing tool. So putting all of your effort into changing up your resume and having that you think that will be your thing, that was maybe a few years ago. That's not what it is right now. It is just one of many ways to market yourself. And clarity comes with action. Perfection is not the standard. You can't think about this, you got to do it. And doing it then creates the clarity. Okay, so what does this mean for me? And then we're rounding out, and then I'll open it up for questions. And please put your questions in the Q&A box. I see we've got one so far. So living the framework, what did it mean for me? I said yes to learn, not just to win. Again, when clarity was missing, action became research. There's so much that I had no clue about, and I just said yes. And I've actually spent, I'm about 4 years out in July, and I've spent this whole time saying yes. And it's only now that I'm taking a pause and kind of taking a step back to be like, okay, I've had a diversity of experiences now. Now I know kind of where I want to zero in on a new lane for my life. I connected with purpose. Community gave me access to wisdom, support, and the new paths that were possible. So I don't have transactional relationships, I really invested in people, and people really invested with me. And it wasn't just like, I always think of when I meet somebody, how can I help? Do I know somebody? Is there a nugget of information that I learned? Because that's what journalists do, right? When we know something, we can't keep it to ourselves, we share. So I just use those instincts in all areas of my life. And as a result, when I really needed the help, and people were like, gave like literally, friends were like, I got somebody on the line. Can I give them your number? Here's a contract here. Or let me write a recommendation for you for this thing that you want to do. Send me the job link so I can go ahead and write the internal recommendation. I did nothing by myself, not one thing by myself. I bet on myself. The idea that this one way of being was the be all end all. That's the only thing I knew for sure. The only thing I knew for sure is that that could not be true. Everything that I was being fed about how to move in this space or what could be possible for me, I was like, that's just not true. I know it's not true. And I know that I'm smart enough to figure it out. So I bet on myself, and I led with strategy and not emotion. Emotion had its place for my group chat, but the emotions never made the decisions for me. I used strategy. It was concrete. Okay, we're making good time. So this is not it for us. Just really happy to announce that the ReWrite, which I founded for journalists who are ready to reassess, reinvent, and reimagine their careers, whether they want to stay in the industry or not. I've created these structured resources. I have partnered with NABJ to provide specific resources for all of you, exclusive resources. So NABJ members who sign up, and we'll put that in the chat box. Yes, it's in the chat box right now. For if you sign up, it's free. It's completely free. And you will get specific resources that will, their webinars, it's a how-to, there's so much more to come, but I try to keep folks accountable to themselves because I want to see you win. And so this partnership, it's one thing to have a one-off conversation. It's something else to create an infrastructure to support your growth. And that's what the ReWrite is infrastructure to support your growth. So sign up there and you will start getting the emails and being in the community. There's always space for you there. And when we do webinars, you won't see other people in the room because we know it's a personal process, but you are seen, you are felt, and there's ways to stay connected. So as much as you put in, the effort you put in is the effort that you get back. So I'm very excited about this partnership. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here and go to the questions. Did I have to get a business degree or any other degrees to launch your business? No, no, I'm not going back to school at all. Not in the traditional sense. What I did though, was that I got in community. And the thing is that it's like, I'm going to say it all the time. I don't do anything by myself. And I also don't believe in climbing the ladder rung by rung, you know, singing Negro spirituals, right? Like, I'm just like, who has the answer? Let me go get the answer. So I got in a community called Luminary. It's based out of New York, but it actually has a digital community. It's for women. And I ended up knowing the founder of the community. So I was connected to her while I was in news, and I told her some ideas that I had, and she was actually instrumental in helping me think about things differently. But they have a ton of classes. So I spent a lot of time in classes. Before I left, I was going to conferences that were not journalism conferences. I listen to podcasts. So like outside of the housewives, which is the only like fun thing that I just like, you know, mind numbing thing, everything else that I'm consuming, reading, listening to are business podcasts, are going to sessions. That's it. Like, that's just what I do. I'm obsessed with it and I'm immersed in it so I can learn as much as possible. I also hired a business coach. I've hired like an accountant to help me learn profit and loss statements and stuff like that, who helps me every single month. So I've invested a lot in myself to learn how to navigate this space. So I think that if there are people who have like programs, there are incubators, things like that, start signing up. Get in the small business community in your area. In New York, they have We NYC, which is also for women. And they're free classes. And I used to go to those classes when I was in news. I just didn't tell anybody, but I was always going to, there's a freelancers union, it's online, and they have different hubs, I think, across the country. I would go to those classes while I was still in news. I wasn't thinking that I would start a business, but I just wanted to be around people who thought differently and who saw the world differently, so I could kind of be a sponge while being around them. I'm a photojournalist working, let me move this over here. I'm a photojournalist working in Kentucky. I'm the only Black woman in my newsroom, the only female photographer, and I'm ready to start my own newspaper, telling stories of Black people globally with a focus on Black female veterans. How do I gain access to grants for equipment? I need new cameras. So you have to create the business case for, well, one, you want to look for places that support the Black press, support photojournalists. So I would look at who are the sponsors of NABJ, who sponsors NABJ, like when there is, for the convention that's coming up, you know, there's the book list, you'll have this like sponsored by, we usually like glaze by those we glaze by those parts of the agenda and things of that nature. Look at who those companies are that are supporting Black folks. Who are those companies that are supporting women? Who are those companies that are supporting photogs, and create the business case. So it's not enough that you want to do it. It is, how will you make an impact? So again, that's the business case. Journalists, this is what we want to do. This is the story we want to tell. Business, what impact will it have? Who is your ideal audience? It cannot be everybody, right? Who will you serve? How will you disseminate the information? And then in terms of the number that you ask for, you have to differentiate, like, how will that money be spent, right? So it doesn't have to be to the dollar, to the penny, but how much is spent on labor, to get the writers and to get a staff, even if it's part-time. How much is it for the cost of goods of service? How much you have to create a business plan essentially for it, or at least a pitch. And then you can take that pitch to the different companies and see if they can fund your idea. What are some strategies to pitch your services to businesses and organizations to land media consulting and training contracts? I don't believe, again, in doing things cold. It's not that I don't believe in it, it's just so much harder. There are people within your network that, even if it's not them, somebody within their network has a contact. So what I did was and this is what I advise people to do when things shake out from it. I advise people to write an email, I always say 100 people in the BCC, and and these are people who have helped you along the way, who are invested in your growth. And look, if that includes your mother, your father, your auntie, your college roommate, your college professor, that boss from 30 years ago, add them all. You don't know who they know. And talk about, I would like to provide media training and consulting. I have been in the business for this many years. I'm making a transition, and here are the ways that you can help. And list out 2 or 3 ways people can help you, from the easiest way, which is, can you follow my LinkedIn page? So, because I'm going to start talking about it more, to making a strategic introduction, which would force them to like leverage their own social capital on your behalf, right? And so it's letting people know that this is what you're in the business to do. And then I would start talking about it on LinkedIn, not necessarily selling your services with every single post, but talk about if there is an interview that somebody is doing, what were the elements of the interview that were good? Maybe what were some of the elements of the interview that needed some work? What are tactics people who are being interviewed? What tactics can they take? Things of that nature. So start talking about it. If you want to be known for something new, especially, you got to start talking about it over and over and over again. I hope I answered your question. Can you give more details about how you're using your news reporting skills differently? So my favorite thing to do is interview people. I started my podcast. I really love learning new things and working with teams who are passionate. And so I kind of fell into the event space. So the event space was like mirrors a lot of news. I just don't do a live shot at the end. So basically, for instance, the things that I was doing with the Atlantic just recently, with the last few weeks, they come to me. They're working with a company that says, hey, we want to talk about AI in healthcare. I'll give you a tangible example. And then I have to come up with, okay, well, that's a broad topic. What are we going to talk about with AI in healthcare? What are the conversations that need to be had, or maybe we started having just, in culture that we need to push forward, provide some examples of that, provide who are the best people with the parameters. So that one was in Boston. Who are some of the folks in Boston who would be great to talk about this? This is what we do when we're creating the story, right? So this is like almost like the morning meeting where it's like there's an idea, and then I have to think about, okay, how can I make this interesting? What are the topics that we have not really talked about here that can push the conversation forward? Who are the people that I'm going to interview about it? Instead of an one-on-one interview, now it's an on-stage interview. I do I call them, I book them, which is like calling folks to say, hey, when can you interview? So it's like, hey, we have an event on this day, can you show up? And then I do pre-interviews with them, and I prep the moderator for it. And so I know what role they play in the story, and this person is good for this and this. And I've strategically curated the panel to have different perspectives on the panel so we can have a robust conversation about this topic. It's everything that I did in putting together a story. Every single thing that I did, the day comes, it happens. And so that's like, I just didn't do a live shot. And sometimes I moderate conversations. For these ones, I did not. And so that's kind of like a one-to-one way that my journalism skills have transferred. Another way my journalism skills have transferred is just in last year with the Root was acquired, and I was working with the company that acquired the Root. And so then I was brought in to like deal with all of the external communication about that. So it's really navigating press. I didn't do the PR because I don't do PR, but working with our PR, I found our PR partner, and then I was the liaison with the PR partner. I'm project managing the Route 100 Gala, where everybody had to kind of tell me what was going on, and I had to make sure everything was kept straight. That's what we do. That's what I did as a reporter every day as well. So I hope those are some good examples. Well, not the presentation. Will we be able to access a presentation online? Not the offline, not the presentation itself, but you're going to be getting a replay of this if you sign up, and a lot more stuff, a lot more stuff. How long did it take you to become profitable? I've always been profitable. And that's because I worked with people who have already done this and done this well. And so they said, don't do that, don't do that. I listened, I just did what I was told from people who knew so much more than I knew. So I've always been profitable. Sophomore in broadcast journalism. I'm overall creative person, but I still don't know exactly where I see myself. Would you have any recommendations? Okay, so if you don't know where you see yourself, even as a sophomore, and then this is something that other people who have had decades of experience where you're like, I don't know where I see myself, go have create opportunities for yourself. So while I was still in, I worked with my college like alumni association for graduates of color. And I wrote their newsletter because I wanted to be able to create a new story about myself, about what I could do that like was outside of journalism that I knew a broader company might understand. And so I couldn't get a second job in news, right? So I volunteered to write the newsletter for my college alumni association that went to over, I think it was like 15,000 people every single month. I have a membership, and folks in the membership have helped their church come up with strategic plans. So they got experiences in other ways, volunteered, and that's how they got other experiences. So you want to put yourself, if you're a sophomore, you want to intern at a lot of different places, see what you like, see what you don't like. If you're a professional already in the industry, how can you volunteer your services to then put you in these professional situations to figure out what you like, what you don't like. I'm running into too many businesses that want people to work for them for free. I turn down everyone. This is not the economy for that. How do you maintain relationships while turning down offers to work for free? So I will say I do some stuff for free for sure, but there has to be a benefit because the benefit is not just monetary. Like that's not the only way to benefit. But there are some things that I say no to. Um, and so I have to assess, what can I get out of this? Is this my ideal audience? Does this opportunity get me in front of my ideal audience? Does this opportunity teach me something? Does this opportunity expand my network? Does this opportunity, like, what do I tangibly get from this opportunity? And I feel like you can do anything for a short amount of time. How can you leverage this to get to the next opportunity? So that's how I really think about it. You touched on this a bit, but I teach at a career prep class for journalism media school. And this past semester, one of my students asked in their final paper, how should we market ourselves if we are interested in more than one specific career niche? I know, okay. What advice would you give young adults who are not only looking to get into journalism industry, but also have multiple interests and are still trying to find their footing while being worried about their future? I had this problem as well of like, will I confuse people? And I think that there is a thread in everything that we do. And if we can speak from that thread, also, I think I mean, I've heard this said many ways of like, what's going to pay the bills? And that's what you lean into if you have multiple things going on and like what you optimize and prioritize. I will say that I think that we're in a point that you can exist as a 360-degree person, as long as you can make it make sense. I think that nobody is expecting anybody to just have that one thing that they are really good at. I think actually our economy is driving us to be good at a few different things, just to make the math. So I would say that you just, especially for a young person, I think it's okay now to show up in different ways, but I would encourage them to consider the thread of what is attracting them to all these different things. Is there a thread that's the commonality between all of them? And speak from that place of saying it manifests in this way, it manifests in this way. I have a podcast, but I also do events. I have this, I speak, I do all these different things. So I think it's trying it out. And then again, it's the results piece. You try it out for a little bit, see what the feedback is. Are people confused? And then Once you get the data, because feedback is just data, then you can tweak accordingly. But I wouldn't say don't try it for fear of what it could be. I'd say do it, get the data, and then make adjustments based on the data that you have. Would also recommend Score. Yes, I haven't used Score, but I have friends who have used Score for folks who want to start a business, and it's a free federal program. Yes, it assigns you a business mentor for free. Healthcare journalism background. Just sign up, Dr. Madison, sign up and then reply to the email, or it's info@therewritecourse.com is my email, info@therewritecourse.com, and we can chat. Okay, as of last month, I've been self-employed for 25 years. Wow, congratulations. But I lost most of my journalism work from the Great Recession. In my mind, I have been homeless more times than I can tell you in real life. I used my skills, repurposed my knowledge, and created all sorts of work for myself, writing, ghostwriting, consulting, speaking, coaching, and so on. I've paid all my bills, paid for my benefits, paid for my health insurance, which is a huge deal, paid off my house. The one piece of advice I'd give your viewers: never underestimate the power of your future self. Say that louder for the folks in the back. Never underestimate the power of your future self. I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much for that. Victor Chapman also said the Urban League also has an entrepreneurial center and free mentors. There are resources all around. And this is the thing, because we're just at time here. So here's the thing, is that if you want to do it, there is a resource out there. You just have to go looking for it. It's not going to come find you. You have to go looking for it. And sometimes the opportunities, again, I want folks to become a magnet for new opportunities. You have to make this like, you have to go after it with the same intensity you feel like you deserve it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, you have to believe you deserve it so much, and that it is possible so much, that you are chasing after this thing. And I just am here to tell you that your next is within reach. There are resources out there, even with recessions and all of that stuff. If you're pulling all of the levers at the same time, things will shake out. There have been times where I'm like, ooh, I need a contract, and I'm not quite sure where it's coming from. But because I'm doing this thing, I get a phone call, I get a text message. It happens over and over and over again. And getting into journalism is hard. And if you could do this, you could literally do anything. And anybody who works with you would be really, really lucky to have you. So again, I hope everybody signs up. I'm so happy you're here. I hope everybody signs up. Again, it's free. It's just resources. And it would be my pleasure to partner with you on your journey. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time and just your participation. It means a whole lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you.